Okay, we're live. Welcome to another Nerd Stalker interview. This is Greg Glory, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network. Today we'll be speaking with Ben Hamlin, co-founder and CEO of Localwise. It's a service promoting local jobs and local businesses. And they're co-hosting an upcoming job fair that I want them to talk about in a little bit on that focuses on diversity in the startup workplace, which is something that here at Nerd Stalker we promote and we support greatly here. So anyway, good morning, Ben, and welcome to Nerd Stalker live from Oakland, California, right?
Yeah. Hey, Greg. Thanks for having me this morning, and I am live from Oakland, so great to be chatting with you.
Yeah, and thanks for reaching out to us and helping us help you promote the event. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, Localwise.
Right. So the background in me is I have local business in my DNA. I'm the son of two local business owners. They work out of the attic of the home that I grew up in, and they still work there. I started a catering company in high school, so I'm very familiar with hiring in a local context. And I still sit on the board of a nonprofit that helps women minority-owned businesses get pro bono consulting services. And so that's given me a lot more exposure in the local business space, particularly on the social side of things. And Localwise is really the newest thing I'm tackling in the local space. I'm doing it with my co-founder, Maya Tobias, who's got a similar background in terms of how local business runs through her DNA. And she and I set out really with the goal of just helping this local business population. We didn't actually know how we were going to do it. And so we joined a National Science Foundation Innovation Corps program in the summer of 2014. We spent 3 months interviewing 500 business owners in Berkeley and Oakland, and basically just doing therapy for them, like learning about their problems and figuring out which problem we wanted to tackle. And the one that really stood out was hiring, because the market is huge. It's currently mostly on Craigslist, and Craigslist just brings with it a host of problems. And really at the core of the problems are it's unstructured data that's flowing through email in the form of PDF or Word doc resumes. And fundamentally, we think that the resume is just not the complete picture for a local applicant. And what we're trying to do is move beyond the resume and insert things that are part of the process offline that are better than the process currently online. And that really boils down to reputation and relationships. And so
Yeah, I think there's this gap. You're absolutely right. There's this gap I see. There's the new old online resume, which is called LinkedIn, right?
Right.
Which really doesn't serve local businesses, when I could tell. They're corporate businesses, yes, but not these local businesses.
Right.
And then this Craigslist thing, which is way down at the bottom.
Right.
Hard to vet. I've been in this whole hiring situation too through Craigslist. It's hard to vet. The quality of applicant is not really guaranteed. You're going to get you'll be sifting through a lot of resumes before you really get the right person, right?
Exactly. And so what LinkedIn's done, and it hasn't happened in the local space yet, is they've moved the resume to a structured data format. So now they can algorithmically match applicants with jobs. And they've also created a community. So they've inserted skill checks and references and other things that give credibility to an applicant. And I would argue that that's even more important in the local space, where it's more about transferable skills and less about necessarily the exact job that you've had before. And so what we're trying to do is, in a similar way to LinkedIn, move that market to structured data, insert reputation as a key element, but make it a lot more friendly for the local space. So I think what our next version of our platform is going to look like is really LinkedIn, has a child with an online dating site, and applied to local jobs. That's really where we're going with this.
Right. Okay, well, let's move on to this job fair, that upcoming job fair that you guys are co-hosting on January 28th here in Berkeley, California. How did you guys come up with this idea of promoting maybe diversity in the startup workplace?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with how we moved to include startups in our market. Historically, we focus on independently owned and operated businesses, so basically Main Street. And we're in an accelerator in Berkeley called Skydeck. It's associated with UC Berkeley. We're a founding team that came from UC Berkeley, and people in the accelerator started asking, can we use your job board? And initially, so we said no. And then we realized that a lot of the same problems that the local businesses were having, the startups were having, namely, they're super under-resourced and they have no idea how to hire. And we ended up getting about 50 people hired into Skydeck teams. And we were really surprised that a lot of the hires were actually for non-technical positions, things like sales, administrative roles, operations. We mostly think of startup hiring as software development, but there are a lot more roles out there. And so we quickly realized that startups should be a part of our marketplace, and now they are. We skew towards non-technical hiring, but we do help with technical as well. And with that bit of information, we went to WeWork, which is a massive co-working space all over the country, and they have one in Berkeley. And we threw a startup job fair there, and we publicized it on Facebook, and within 30 minutes it sold out. And this was just for WeWork startups. And we had a 2,000 person waiting list just in and around Berkeley. We really didn't advertise it beyond the Berkeley borders. And so we thought, we scratched our heads and said, like, there's really something here. There's a huge energy around hiring at startups, and yet startups have a huge problem finding talent. And we took that data to the government of Berkeley and said, look at the energy around hiring. How can we partner to do something even bigger? And Berkeley's government is looking to, to bolster Berkeley's reputation as a startup hub. And so we thought, let's create a much bigger event that really approaches hiring in a way that is different from how it's traditionally done, and will insert diversity as a key theme here, because it's a massive problem for society at large, but in the East Bay, I think it's a really pronounced problem because you have a very diverse community, but that diversity is not really reflected in the startup scene. And so it's, in some ways, Berkeley's quite behind San Francisco or the South Bay in terms of the startup scene. And so the government feels, and we do too, that there's a real opportunity to shift the mindset of how we're creating the startup scene.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, UC Berkeley, top 5 schools in the nation. I mean, come on, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And Berkeley's been known for really a rainbow of diversity in its workplaces there, and they're very open people. So, it makes a lot of sense to have something like that. So anyway, can you kind of put in context, some of the stats I saw that you sent to me about, the underrepresented in the workplace, at least in the startup workplace, and how you see that kind of translating a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty well documented problem at this point, diversity in the tech community at large. When you're looking at bigger companies, we have 29% women, 15% Black or Latino employees, and we're talking about at big tech. So there's it's a lot easier to find statistics there. When you look at the startup community, you have reports from a YC that under 20% of their startups have a woman founder. And then when you look at where the money is going, and that's probably a pretty critical path to follow. VC money is going 8.3% of the time to a women-led startup, and only 1% of the time to an African-American-led startup. So the numbers are striking. They sort of speak for themselves in terms of the problem. And there's so many different ways to tackle this problem. We can think about diversity practices at big tech. We can think about incubating startups and helping those founders. We're taking an angle that I don't think people are covering as much, which is the actual the early employees at a startup. And there's really less data on that population, but we're not saying that this angle is more important than the others. We just think it should be included in the conversation because these are the people who are going to get stock at a low basis. These are the people who are going to get the experience and then move on to be founders of startups. And so it's a critical community to target. And we can't even find data on diversity of early employees at startups. So on the one hand, that's a pain, and on the other hand, it's probably an opportunity to steer this ship in the right direction. And so, when we thought about, why is this problem occurring in the early stage startup space, and we thought about, how do early stage startups hire? It's really based on relationships, and it's based on trust, and the stakes are just so high in an early stage where one wrong hire and you could literally sink your company. And so in that kind of atmosphere, you're even more prone to not work off of a Craigslist or another hiring platform, and to go just based on offline trusted relationships. And so our hypothesis is that part of the diversity problem here is that those networks that you find those relationships in are not very diverse. And so what we're trying to do through the job fair fundamentally is really diversify those networks and actually get people in front of each other who may not oftentimes cross paths, never mind have a conversation about hiring, hopefully spark some friendships there. And we think that's really the first step to hiring in the startup space.
No, I think it's a great idea, because I think that you're absolutely right. The way that relationships works in the startup space is through networking, and a lot of it is coalesced in co-working spaces like WeWork, or at accelerator space like Founder Space, for example.
Right, exactly.
And who host their own events as well, right? So, but these are somewhat islands, right? I mean, people kind of know about it through maybe Eventbrite, maybe other places, and
right.
But there's an event happening almost every night here in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge even to kind of understand, who's coming to this event. On Eventbrite, I used to be very good about looking at who's on the list and seeing exactly,
Right.
would this really help me in some way, but I think what you're doing is focusing everything and kind of putting it into an interesting context that allows people to kind of build these new relationships and communities. It's great. So let's talk about the event. When is it going to happen again? And what type of companies would you expect to see for people who are attending to looking for jobs at this event?
Yeah, so it's on January 28th. It's at Next Space, which is a co-working space in Berkeley that can hold hundreds of people. So that's a plus. It's put on in partnership with the City of Berkeley's Economic Development Office. So kudos to them for taking the lead and flipping a big portion of the bill. It's also put on by the Berkeley Startup Cluster and Localwise, my company. What we're doing is we're getting diverse talent by leveraging really a network of community stakeholders that have been doing awesome work for a long time. So just to name a few, the Kapor Center for Social Impact, Women Who Code, Latinas in Tech, Yes We Code, Hardware Massive, Telegraph Academy, and there's a bunch more. So we didn't need to recreate that wheel. There's already a lot of pockets of diverse talent who are being educated in skills that are relevant for startups. So we access the talent that way. We're providing free headshots through the Localwise photography team. We're also doing free resume reviews. We're asking some of our friends who are in the HR space to do that. So there'll be a little bit more than just introductions. And then on the startup side, we've got about 20 startups signed up so far. We'll probably get to 25 total. But these are startups that, we're not focused on a particular industry. We're really focused on high growth startups who are looking to hire and who embrace the inclusive approach that we're focused on at this job fair. So just to name a few, we've got Massdrop, which is an online community for enthusiasts. They raised $40 million recently and almost 50 million total. And they're SF based. So this isn't purely Berkeley. We have Lead Genius, which is a Berkeley-based business. They do demand prospecting to accelerate the sales cycle for companies, and they recently raised a $6 million Series A. PandaDoc, which does document automation for sales teams. They recently raised a $5 million Series A. And Magoosh, which is a pretty well-known company in the Berkeley area. They do a Khan Academy style for test prep, and they've raised some early financing, but I believe they're actually a sustainable business at this point. So they're a great social mission company, and I personally have a lot of friends who work there. So that's just a few of the ones that are notable. We also are going to have a decent representation from Skydeck companies. So these are companies that have gone through the UC Berkeley acceleration ecosystem, both current companies and alums. But suffice to say, it's a pretty awesome group, and it's one that these are good jobs. These aren't these aren't working at a startup that might fold tomorrow. These startups all have runway, and they're all looking to hire.
Yeah, and obviously they're funded and they're ready to go in a lot of them, in a lot of cases. So that's great. So what time? What's the layout of this event? A person will I guess register on Eventbrite.
Yep.
They get checked in. Is it typical like a job fair? There'll be tables with startup people behind them, or how does this work?
Yeah, tables with startup people behind them. We're going to try to make the layout a little bit more casual, because we do think like at the core the idea is relationship building here, and we're going to provide a couple things that are extra. I mentioned the headshots and the resume review. We're also going to get actually some of the local artisans from the East Bay community to provide in-kind gifts. So that will mostly be in the form of things you can eat. So that will add a nice flavor, no pun intended, to the event. And we're going to have, the city's going to be there, city representatives, some press representatives. So it's definitely an awesome networking event for diverse local job seekers and really the community at large to get a look at these startups and to potentially work for them.
That's great. Well, we'll close off the interview, and thank you for your time again. So how can listeners get a hold of you and find out more about this job fair on the 28th?
Yeah, so our website's always up. It's www.localwisejobs.com, and if you go to our blog, there's plenty more information about this job fair. Like you said, you can register on Eventbrite. You can also follow us on Instagram or Twitter at Localwise Jobs, and we're pretty active there. So you can follow us daily. You can reach out to me directly at ben@localwisejobs. That's my email. And yeah, just feel free to reach out if you have any more questions.
Well, great. I appreciate that. Anyway, thanks again for the interview. That was Ben Hamlin, the co-founder and CEO of Localwise, and promoting local jobs with local candidates. And it's having an upcoming job fair again on January 28th in Berkeley. And you can find all that information on our link there that we'll provide in this article below, or else at the description below. And anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. This is Greg Gloria, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerdstalker Media Network, where we believe in tech, startups, design, and you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and be careful out there. Thanks again, Ben. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Greg. Likewise.